Hello everyone out there. I hope you can hear me well and see me okay, plus see my slides as well. I hope. Can someone just pop a message into the chat and tell me that I'm coming across clearly and that you can see me and my slides? Yeah, someone's talking. Great, all good, wonderful. Thank you so much. Hello everyone, great to be here, great to see you here as well. I was quite chuffed when I found out that there was a little bit of interest in this webinar and we had over 50 registrations. This webinar will be recorded as well, and so if you wanted to check back onto it later, I'll probably upload it to YouTube. So welcome everyone, I hope you are okay out there wherever you are. We are down in regional Victoria here, so we've had another ease of restrictions last weekend, I believe, from stage 3 to now we can go out without any reason, which is quite amazing. But let's get started with the do's and don'ts of Chinese herbal dispensing. It's proudly brought to you by Safflower Chinese Herbs, expertly dispensed, and myself. My name is Bridget Linda. For those who don't know me, I am originally from Switzerland. I did study in Melbourne, completed my course in 2001, went back to Switzerland then. And the way I started my practice, because I went back to Switzerland immediately after I graduated, was that in Switzerland, none of the Chinese medicine practitioners are allowed to self-dispense, so they all have to use a registered dispensary service. So that's why, that's how I started my career as Chinese medicine practitioner back in 2002. I am the founder and now sole director of Safflower Chinese Herbs, expertly dispensed. So you will appreciate that some of my views here have come from my background in running this business now for over 12 years. And also my background in Chinese herbal dispensing. I did work for two of the biggest dispensers in Switzerland. One was Complemedis and one is Dr. Noir. It's a pharmacy network. They do both Western medicine and Chinese herbal medicine, which is amazing. I'm a registered practitioner, still practice acupuncture, Chinese herbs, and I'm also registered as a dispenser. I'm classically trained as a herbalist with Dr. Arno Veslois. I think we finished in 2017 that diploma of canonical East Asian medicine. Now, the Safflower Dispensary here in New Haven is under the jurisdiction of the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration. They do raise a licensing fee that we have to pay every year, plus every 2 years or so they do come out to the premises to inspect us and make sure that we still fulfill all the requirements of a GMP license, a good manufacturing practice license. We now have to pay for those inspections at a significant cost. It's really, really high cost. Anyway, so this is my background. So hopefully you will get a lot out of it today. Some things you might know, some things you might not know. Hopefully I can inspire you to make your Chinese herbal dispensing practice better, optimize it or change it in some ways that suits you better. So I'm thinking that the content that I've prepared for you today is about 45 minutes. I'm thinking I left 15 minutes for us to, well, for me to take your questions. You can put them in the chat box. I probably won't be able to answer them during the next 30 to 45 minutes. And then I have a very quick poll at the end where you can just say anonymously yes or no, you did get something out of this content today. And then also maybe some ways how we can stay connected. And also if you do have specific questions to your herbal dispensing practice, then you might also email them later and we can talk on the phone or something like that. So we're going to cover quite a few areas. And I'm going to start off with the Chinese Medicine Board. Get this out of the way here. Oops. Yeah. So the Chinese Medicine Registration Board did develop the guidelines for a safe Chinese herbal practice under the Section 39 of the Health Practitioner Regulation National Law. Now we are being held accountable to the board and we are required to meet the standards that they set in those guidelines. I'm thinking they're not actively enforcing the guidelines, but if they do receive a complaint or a notification, they will come out and audit you and will use the guidelines as evidence in proceedings. So we need to know what's in those guidelines and what's required from us. I do suspect that they had some notifications, so they did identify a risk associated with Chinese herbal medicine practices and hence the guidelines. They were last released first time released 2017. They are being reviewed every 3 years, so this year will be a review, and I haven't seen anything about them yet, but that might still come. Now, just some very general rules from the guidelines, and this webinar is not about the guidelines, it's just giving me a bit of an introduction, and also because we have slightly different guidelines from the TGA, just to show you that there is quite a significant difference between the two. So what they ask us as CMBA, what they ask from us is a clear and consistent herb nomenclature. Now, I'm not sure if that's pronounced properly because I looked it up and there's actually several ways to say that. So nomenclature or language. They want us to have comprehensive patient records, which we know that we need to do that anyway. The prescriptions need to be adequate. They need to have accurate labeling. They need to be precise. The compounding and dispensing needs to be precise and professional, obviously. And the guidelines do apply to all practicing and registered Chinese medicine practitioners, not to retailers when sale is not part of a consultation with a registered practitioner. This also is the difference to us why we do need a license as a third-party dispensary, because we don't consult with patients directly. You do. So, yeah, so that's the difference. The registration in acupuncture only, and I'm not sure, I think I've left this here just to say briefly, if you are registered in acupuncture only and not in Chinese herbal medicine, then legally you'd have to disclose that to your patient if you do prescribe for them individual herbs in herbal prescriptions. So if you don't, just give them patents, but you are obliged to actually disclose that to your patients. Okay, so we are diving a little bit into supply chain and stock management, which is maybe a little bit dry, but might be important to say that we all want our patients to have the best medicines, the cleanest, the purest medicine, and also that those medicines obviously come from sustainable and ethical sources. So the supply chain just tells you where is the product, where is the individual substance coming from, where was it farmed, how was it processed after that, which manufacturer then touched it next and dried it or made granules out of it or liquid extracts or powdered it or whatever else that their manufacturing practices are out there. And then usually it goes to an import or wholesale or a distribution in the country. Like, for instance, we use KBC granules, so they come from KBC in Taiwan, and then we purchase them from Aconites in Melbourne. Then they come to us, the practitioner of the shop, and then from there they go to the patients. So all I'm wanting to encourage you is to be aware of the supply chain of your products, so you can confidently give them to your patients at the end of this supply chain. So in essence, being familiar with the exact supply chain of products, where do they exactly come from, where have they been exactly processed, how have they been processed, and who is behind all these individual steps. This is how you can choose a quality product, because, as I said, you are responsible for the medicines that you give to your patients, so you will be audited if something goes wrong with the medicines that you give to your patient. We need to have certificates of analysis, COAs, for every single substance that we have. We couldn't operate without them. So if you do have a supplier, maybe ask them for certificates, because it shows you exactly that the right botanical identity has been used for your single substance, and also what kind of tests have been performed, what analysis has been done on the single substance before it comes to you. We always seek a collaborative relationship with our suppliers. We make sure that we meet our that we're on the same page when it comes to standards or conducts or even visions and ideas. That also gives us then space to negotiate terms and conditions. So when you have a certain pattern on how you pay your suppliers or your invoices, then you might negotiate those terms with your suppliers as well. So, call them, make a time with them, or talk to them on the phone, or a Zoom meeting, and see how you can better serve each other, because we are a small industry and we should also do that a little bit better than how we do it. So align yourself with your supplier's rhythm to streamline your own process. I think that's what I wanted to say. Stock management is such a headache for so many people, including us. I'm the first one to admit that. We always try and optimize our stock management, and mind you, we've got about $40,000 worth of stock sitting on our shelves. So we really want to be doing a good job with that, because otherwise we don't have the right stock, or we have too much stock, and then we have too much money caught up in our stock that might not be moving. So organized and detailed. This is a screen from our stock management systems, or a stock list, and I'm not sure if you can see it well, but we capture every single stock that we receive that comes in terms of the details of the product itself, the name, the number, the product number. Then we have two names, we have pinyin and pharmaceutical names, who's added the stock to the stock management system, when was it added, what's the expiry date of that stock, what is it granule, is it liquid, what's the quantity, and what's the batch number. So we have quite an extensive inventory management system. As you imagine, we need to have that, because we've got, I don't know, 200 and 500 individual products there. And as you know, they vary in amounts, in volumes. So what I can encourage you is, and I don't know what smaller stock management systems are out there, but even just an Excel where you just capture those points, so you know at all times what stock you have there on your shelves and when it expires. We also have KPIs, key performance indexes, where we try to, for instance, have 125 of our most important products on the shelves all the time. And if they do at some stage run out, which can happen in these times, unfortunately, then we should not be out of stock longer than 2 weeks. So we kind of work towards those KPIs as well. So stock management, yeah. Is there anything else I wanted to say to that? I'm not sure how you do stock management out there at this point of time, so it'll be interesting to hear your views on that. So batch numbers and consistency in your dispensing. So we're already moving on to now dispensing, record taking and patient safety. Batch numbers are really a key information to backtrack products and also to obviously know where they're going to go from you. The batch number is that information. It's like the soul of the product, the DNA of the product, because you know it contains all the information where it's coming from, and then if you capture that information to where it's going to, you'll be doing your herbal dispensing really well. Very obviously diligent with your hygiene practices. I think we've all become specialists and experts in hygiene practices in the last 6 months. So in our dispensary, we also have to keep liquids separate from granules because TGA is always looking for cross-contamination. So we can't actually dispense the same products in the same rooms. To allocate the batch numbers to dispensed scripts is extra work. I totally get that. But I'm sure that, you know, you will be feeling so much better to know exactly what batch have you given to what patient. We need to do that here in case of a recall. We actually have to practice a recall, I think, once a year. It's part of our requirements where we have to say, well, a certain product was recalled by the supplier, I don't know, Shinren or Baiji or something like that. And then we have to check where this product has gone with that particular batch. And then we have to contact each and every patient or practitioner who has prescribed this product and make a recall. Now, in most cases, if it takes a long time for a recall to be listed, then obviously the product has already been ingested and hopefully not caused too many adverse effects. But like that's what the batch numbers are there for. You will have to keep comprehensive patient records. We know that anyway, so I don't know. We have in our system a confirmation email whenever we place orders, which I copy and paste into my clinical patient records. I know exactly what I have prescribed on what day and to what amount. So this is actually quite easy. Just copy and paste it from a confirmation email into the clinical record. Use clean containers. Now, I know a lot of you out there do like to use recycled ones. I'm not a big fan of that, but I understand that more individual boxes or containers cause more waste, but in my view now, after doing this for 12 years, I think it's worthwhile to have a clean container for every single patient and every single script. We do occasionally get patients that come to the clinic who bring in their glass jars that can be obviously washed really hot, and in that case we would just dispense it directly into the glass jars and give that to the patient, because if the patient is bringing it in, they kind of they know what they've done with the container. We always have to advise patients of potential adverse effects, and I am very diligent with that when I prescribe for the first time. or when a patient receives Chinese herbs for the first time, and I tell them to immediately ring the clinic if they would encounter any adverse effects such as stomach pain or vomiting or diarrhea or pain or something like that. We also support to report adverse effects to the TGA. Now, with single substances or compounding your own scripts, that's very difficult, but we can do it with patents because single substances are not on the ARTG, the Australian Register for Therapeutic Goods, but patents are, so we need to actually report them. I think it's called the blue card system, and we are obliged to do that. So patient safety and product consistency must be your priority number one. Now, consistency is important, as you can imagine, and you just got to be diligent with yourself to, if you do change even a repeat script with 1 or 2 ingredients, then to make a note of that. Also, consistency will allow you to see if the herbal formula is working and in what way is it working. If you constantly change your herbal formulas and don't make notes on what you've changed with it, for instance, then you just never know what's working and what isn't working. So consistency is a high priority here as well. TGA, when they come, always look for how do we make the product consistent each and every time. Oops. The labeling. I think most of us know now that labeling is in English language, and the herbs can be noted in pinyin, that the patient name and the dispensing date needs to be on it. Individual ingredients and dosages need to be listed on the label. We also note the practitioner and their contact phone number on behalf that we have dispensed the script of, and it's best if their practitioner has your information on their label as well, because sometimes you know something happens quickly. I remember a case where a practitioner has prescribed herbs to a patient, and the patient was admitted to hospital, and the hospital just had to check what the patient was taking, and I don't think at the time it was very clearly noted to who the practitioner was and what was exactly given to the patient and so forth. So it's very important that, well, not just for the patient to be able to read the label properly and maybe the instructions, also for other health practitioners in cases like that, which hopefully doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. So it's best that labels are more clear than not. So as much information on the label as possible, especially for emergency, is very important. The restricted herbs story in Australia is unfortunately a very sad one. We would love, especially as traditional or as classical herbalists, we would love access to Futsu and Ma Huang, but we might be a few years off that, unfortunately. It was very close to be scheduled a few years back, and then the government changed, and it was left on the minister's desk, and then a new minister came in and it wasn't signed off, unfortunately. But now it's back in the hands of the CMBA. They requested the profession a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, to really show their interest in those herbs, and then which we did. We came together, all the professional associations came together and provided them with that document where we're saying we really want these herbs back in our clinics. I don't know where it's at, but I do remember that they did tell us at the time that it might take up to 10 years for that to happen. So what they're trying to do is actually put Fuzhe and Ma Huang into Schedule 1 on the SUSMP, which is the Uniform Scheduling of Medicine and Poison Standard. It's empty at the moment, so that could be an opportunity for us to have those herbs at least in there. And then we have to receive a special training so we can either prescribe them or compound them. But that was the plan, but it might take a little bit longer. So currently it's illegal for us to even touch those herbs. And there is thresholds of the active ingredients in the herbs that will allow a GP, so a medical practitioner, a dentist, a veterinary surgeon, or a pharmacist to have access to those herbs. But if we're not registered in any of those professions, then we simply can't obtain, process, use, sell, or supply these herbs in any way, shape, or form, which is very sad and very frustrating because we know how good those herbs are and how effective those herbs are. So the legal way is the way for us. Imagine the repercussions if some of our critics would find out that we are using those herbs illegally. That would be devastating for the whole industry. The supply of patents, proprietary medicines, I don't have a huge expertise with those, but I can sort of give you the legalities around it. So listed AUSAL or AUSR products are on the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods, the RATG. Now, most Chinese formulas, such as China Med here, on the picture here, are listed due to lack of therapeutic claims based on scientific evidence. Now, the TGA is very, very, very clear. They only accept scientific evidence, which we don't have much of in herbal formulations, unfortunately. And then they won't budge on that. I think we've tried several times to maybe open their minds towards accepting empirical evidence, but they're very scientifically orientated. So listed patents comply with labelling already. So if you do sell them, don't repackage them or relabel them so the patient can see the AUSAL or AUSAR number. If you do need to change the dosage for those, then maybe just a separate sticker somewhere so your patient will remember how to take them. Like, if you decide to change the dosage, because it's often printed on the container. So if you want to change that, to just put a separate sticker on it with your dosage instructions. They do apply to all practicing and registered Chinese medicine practitioners, but they're also sold universally. Right, I don't think there's anything else I need to say about them. So as I said, acupuncturists have access to those. We do too, and I don't use them very often in my clinic. So I have very limited expertise. Right, potential issues with herbal dispensing. As just to remind you of my background, and so you won't get mad at me if I do mention some things here. I did write a white paper around those issues as well, and you can download that from the BridgetLinda.com website if you're interested. So one of the potential issues with doing your own herbal dispensing, especially as a solo practitioner, I have to point out, is their lack of expertise. Like, you know, where do you want to put your focus? You want to see patients, you want to do herbal dispensing, you want to do acupuncture, what do you want to do? So sometimes there is lack of expertise, and I know all courses now, all herbal courses they do have a herbal dispensing component, and those students and graduates do spend time in those herbal dispensaries to get to know how to do herbal dispensing. But it could still be not enough for you to do a proper herbal dispensing in terms of all aspects of herbal dispensing, not just mixing herbs together. The financial outlay and implications is for stock is quite big, because, you know, how are you going to choose your stock? Do you have certain herbs, or do you have just any herbs that anyone wants, or and how are you going to afford that? Is the stock going to block your cash flow? So these are just kind of aspects that I throw at you to think about. I did tell you we have about $30,000 or $40,000 worth of stock, and I can tell you that hurts sometimes to know all this money is tied up in our stock sitting on the shelves there. Now, one of the points that always raises eyebrows is financial gain from herb sale. It's not an optimal scenario that we have to sell the herbs to the patient. And you can imagine why that is so. So my suggestion is, would it be better to have a dispensing fee rather than, you know, markups on the individual products? I don't know if that's a good idea, but could that be something to help us lose some of the critics that say, well, the financial gain from herb sale is not optimal because it actually is a conflict of interest for practitioners. And I know we all want to do a good job. I know as practitioners, you know, we're really passionate about the health of our patients, and it's not our primary aim to become a millionaire on selling herbs, but I'm just looking for better ways for us to do that. So one of my suggestions was, would it be better to charge a dispensing fee rather than a big markup on the herbs? So you do need time, and time required to keep your dispensary up to date. You need to know your guidelines, so you need some resources, and you need to be able to meet the requirements of the board with your herbal dispensing. You need to have cleaning and hygiene practices, which I'm very, very sure everyone is totally on top of that right now. And then the stock management issues, you know, what products do you have on your shelves? What do you do when they expire? So it is totally unacceptable to give expired stock to your patients. I'm pretty sure you know that. And that's sometimes just a headache, because you might have to throw out or, you know, use. I know some practitioners use their own expired stock, so they don't have to throw it out. I totally get that. So once again, just some thoughts for you to take away with stock management, wastage of products. Is your packaging and labeling compliant with the guidelines? Are you really doing the best you can there? Also, obviously the best for your patients. And are you breaching the CMBA guidelines anywhere? Do you know if you do or don't? So just a few thoughts there for you to consider. I do have some more economic considerations. So the financial outlay when starting out is a big burden for graduates, a huge burden. So would it be better to have a limited dispensary? Once you know you've started practicing, you really want some herbs there for your patients, would it be good just to have an area that you dispense your own herbs for, say in women's health? because it might not be 125 herbs, it might be less than that, and you might have everything there for that, and then whatever you need outside that area, you can do patents, or you can use one of the dispensary services in Australia, something along those lines. So you're not just thinking you have to buy every single product out there that everyone thinks is great and everyone wants all of a sudden. Because that will get you into trouble, where all of a sudden all your cash is sitting on the shelves in your stock or on your stock. We did do a quick survey a few months ago just to find out. So for reordering stock, practitioners use about half an hour to 1.5 hours a week, which I didn't think was a lot, but it doesn't cover all your time that you have to spend in a proper dispensary if you're doing it all yourself. So what you should do is really do a profit and loss on your herbal dispensing. That includes also your time. There is a blog listed here where you can work out your profit margin, just very specific to the stock inventory and some of those key figures in stock management. So you will have to, if you really want to know, is this worthwhile for you, you really have to add all the costs, not just the product cost. You also have to add a percentage to keep the products on your shelves. I think it's 1.8% of your stock value to keep that stock to keep that stock on the shelves. So you will have to do a bit of analysing. I never had. Needed to, I don't know what it did. It just went down. But I'm back, and I think you are still there as well, which is great. So, sharing my screen again. That's where we start. Simple as Excel. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. I haven't quite worked out how to properly move the slides here. My apologies for that. Just finding it again. So it was here just before. That's where they are. Okay, so in summaries, the do's and the don'ts for Chinese herbal dispensing. I think it's important to analyze your requirements for herbs. So have a clear plan about it, rather than just going and buying stuff and then thinking, yeah, you're going to use it at some time or sometimes and you're not. So just be clear about maybe just a particular area you want to dispense your own herbs for, and other areas are covered by patents or by a dispensary service. So be aware of your responsibilities and the consequences of your actions, which is very important. And in a situation where you are being reported or notified, then they will come out and check you out, unfortunately, which is very, very stressful, very stressful. So be organized and guidelines and keep track and look at data. So look at data both financially and also inventory, and stay consistent with your herbal dispensing. So don't just, you know, do stuff on the fly, on the go, and yeah, I feel a bit like I want to add this herb or that herb to that. Try not to do that. So just be really consistent with, okay, well, this is the script I want to give. I want to give this at a certain amount, so that's what I do. And then you know exactly what to expect, hopefully, or what your patient's reaction should be based on that. And then you can do a repeat, or you can do a tweak next time the patient comes in. So just don't go random about your herbal dispensing, plan it out. That's my point. Don't give your patients expired products or stock. This includes raw herbs that have life in them of some kind. I remember when I worked in, when I did my training, and we had raw herbs, and we had to go through the herbs every week and check that raw herbs, that there wasn't anything else living in those containers. Don't try and have as many herbs as possible. It will be difficult to keep up. Just have a focus on what area you would like to focus on, and then stick to that for a while. If it's not working, you know, you change, but you've got to stick with something for a little bit. And don't be tempted into buying, obtaining, dispensing, or dealing restricted herbs. It's very clear we don't legally have access to them. And I'm 5 minutes early, but it's now time to ask your questions. If you like, you can check out our website, of course, safflower.com.au. We have an Instagram account, safflower_dispensary. You can have a look at our Facebook page, or you can connect with me in LinkedIn. However, you can just also send us an email to info@safflower.com.au if you have a specific question, or if there's the questions not answered. Any of your questions haven't been answered today, and I will now try and bring up the polling. You today, it's anonymous, so I don't know who is saying yes or no. So it's okay to say no. Now I can stop share here, so thank you for that. So far, so you know. Yes, I might. Oh no, I can't bring that up. I can't share that. So I can tell you what's on our labels. So we have the name of the formula, or some practitioners don't call it a Li Wei Di Huang, they call it hormonal balance or sleep well formula or something like that. And then we have the dosage instructions. So they're to take 3 grams 3 times a day with hot water or cold water or no water. Then we have the text where it says dispensed on behalf of Christina and your contact phone number. And then the last bit is where it lists every single ingredient and the amount. So the actual amount, because our scale is highly sensitive. So we have 2 digits after the zero, the comma. So it will then also list the exact amount of herb that was put into that particular formula. I'm happy to send you an example if you like. Did that kind of answer your question, Christina, or do you need more? Wondering what the expiry is for raw herbs after you open a packet? That's a good question. I am not entirely sure. Do they not come with an expiry date on them? You'd have to ask someone from Winner or Steve Clavey. I don't know if they do come with expiry dates. labeling example and raw herb dosage. Sorry, Hannah, I can't answer your question more than that. I will find out though. Yeah, so granule concentration or ratios are very, very tricky because they're all individual. So I do remember a couple of years ago on the TCM practitioner share group, there was someone who had developed an Excel where it would take the granule ratios or concentration factors into account. But of course, that requires for the manufacturer to tell you what those ratios are. So just a word on ratios, if it says 1 to 20 or 1 to you know, really high concentrated, it's actually impossible to do a concentration factor because they're water extract. You can only have a certain ratio of maybe 1 to 8 or 1 to 10 tops. So if anyone says they can concentrate higher than that, I'd be a bit wary. Sorry if I'm offending anyone in here today, but it's all described in Eric Brand's book. I don't remember what his book is called, but he did quite a bit of research on herbal, different herbal forms. There's more questions there. No, not yet. Any other questions? Yeah, there is. What's your parent quality? Quarter granules. I think they're good granules. They come from Taiwan. I don't know. But manufacturer are good. I can find out more if you like, Hannah, because I can also maybe find out what the answer to your other question was. Or are you commonly prescribing Herschel given the sound herbal? I am, but I wouldn't prescribe them to a patient who had in any way, shape or form altered liver values. Blood, if you have to prescribe Herschel, if they didn't have any history in any changes in their liver values, then yeah, I'd be confident, but not if they had. Hope that answers your question. Using premix formulas compared to single herbs put together. Yeah, that's always a question that that is asked about. Look, they do say the synergy of the prepared formula is stronger. I remember someone asked this question to Arno in our course, and Arno said, well, all comes together in the stomach anyway, so does it really matter? Because he was using granules at the time because he was traveling a lot, and that was a question that was asked him. That was his answer. And yeah, I've used liquid extracts most of my practice here in Australia for the last 12 years. They're also single substances. They don't come as formulations, and I found them quite effective, especially in children. Yeah, really effective. So premixed, I would prefer a premixed formula. But it's not always possible to have premixed formulas, and how would you then accommodate for the customization? So I think customization maybe takes priority over premixed formula. I think that's my answer to that question, Christina. Do I only use KPC granules? At the moment I do, because with the TGA license, we can only use someone who has a GMP license from the TGA. The Australian regulatory which is the TGA, and TGA has inspected KPC in Taiwan. That's why we use KPC granules. If we would use a different granule range, such as Coda, we'd have to do our own testing. We'd have to test each batch on arrival, which is it's impossible to do because the cost would just be so high to do that. So that's why we use KPC granules. There's more questions. Good answers. Thank you. Any other questions? Any feedback? Doesn't look like it. So I actually enjoyed giving this webinar. It's my first one ever. It's funny to talk to your own computer and not knowing who's out there. There's another, something just started blinking. No. Any other questions there? So most of you found it helpful. I'm very happy to hear that. And I hope you keep well. Things are getting better slowly. And I will make, raising hands. Now, where do I find, right? Thank you. Okay. Awesome. I can email notes, yeah. So you mean the slides? I can make slides available, no problem at all. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here today. I wish you all the very, very best, and I hope you had some good ideas on inspiration on how you could tackle your herbal dispensing or let it go altogether. But yeah, feel free to email info@safflower.com.au anytime if you have any more questions or if you wanted to talk to me about something in particular. Very happy to do that as well. Thanks again for your presence today. Much appreciated, and have a great afternoon and be 10 minutes early. That's really cool. Thank you. All right, bye for now.